Welcome to Hard Talk. I'm Stephen Sacker. Narendra Modi still has his hands on the levers of power in India, but thanks to the recent election, his grip isn't as tight as it was. His prime ministerial third term will depend on the reliability of the smaller parties in his ruling coalition. And the opposition in India's parliament has been re-energized after years on life support. My guest, Sachin Pilot, is a senior figure in the Congress Party, which will lead a diverse opposition coalition. Is India heading for a period of consensual government or chaos? Sachin Pilot, welcome to Hard Talk.
Thank you.
The recent Indian election, it was a result which nobody really expected. Your party, the Congress Party, did better than the polls had suggested it would. Many in your party expressed contentment, even joy, and yet you still lost. Isn't that the key point?
That is true, but I think the expectation from the ruling dispensation, a lot of the popular mainstream media, was that the propaganda will suffice and people will give a bigger majority to the ruling party. And what really happened was this was a vote by the people to check what we thought were excesses by the government, and the Congress Party and our allies together have done remarkably well compared to last time. If you look at the numbers, the ruling party has 290 odd MPs and we have 240 odd. So it's not that much of a gap, but more than that, it shows the robustness of our democracy, and the way people have voted is that issues that are important to the people is what finally matters.
Sure, but the rhetoric surely is overblown on your side of the political fence. Rahul Gandhi, obviously to many people the leader of the Congress Party, he said the idea of Mr. Modi has been destroyed. And yet the BJP vote only went down by a percentage point or so from 2019, and they far outstripped your own Congress Party vote.
Well, if you look at the numbers, really, the BJP has come down 70 members of parliament, from 303 down to 240. And Congress Party has more or less doubled its numbers. So I think a resounding vote against the government, because the
Modi
people
hasn't been destroyed. Why are you pretending that he has? He hasn't.
I think the way the government functioned for the last 10 years, that was not acceptable to most Indians. And this vote really has been a check and balance vote. Of course, we didn't form the government. We don't have the numbers for that. But a strong united opposition is what the Indian people wanted, and we have given it to them. The Congress Party, by the way, people were expecting us to do a lot worse, but we all knew the reality on the ground was different. So we got support across section, and we've increased our number of MPs and vote share.
Yeah, it's interesting though that your performance of the Congress Party, because we're going to talk about the strength of the opposition, the performance of your party was extraordinarily patchy. You are the party's general secretary for one particular state, Chhattisgarh, where actually you did much worse as the Congress Party in this election than you did last time around. And I guess you have to take the blame for that.
Listen, many states we have outperformed our previous numbers.
But I'm talking about the state you're personally responsible for.
Chhattisgarh, we had 2 members of parliament. Now we have 1. And the other gentleman lost by 1,600 votes. So the vote share actually is almost as it was last time.
Sure, but you went backwards. You went backwards. And you're sitting here telling me, oh my goodness, this is a transformational moment in India. Modi is on the back foot. And I'm suggesting to you that the Congress Party is in grave danger of being overconfident about what it's done.
You said all that. I didn't say all that. I'm thinking this is a good election in the sense that Congress Party numbers are up. Our workers are enthused. We have won few state elections. We've doubled our numbers in the parliament. And a united opposition is, I think, as important in democracy as a ruling government. So the Congress has been given the mandate to check and balance inside of parliament and outside of parliament. And that's factually proven. The data says it all.
United opposition, you say. As I understand it, the opposition coalition is a sort of ragbag grouping of, what is it, 28 different political parties and movements, including some that have very different interests. You've got several different communist parties, you've got the Indian Union Muslim League, you've got a Hindutva-based party that has fallen out with the BJP. How are you going to make a coherent whole out of this mess of parties?
This coalition came about in a full public display. The people of India knew the India Alliance, as we are called, and they voted for the India Alliance members of parliament across the country. That's why we have 240 members of parliament. So this alliance was formed because we all felt that taking on the BJP collectively is a better idea, and what we stand for, the issues we raise, is relevant to the people. So the people accepted the alliance as it is. So 24 parties coming together, it's not easy. It's a lot of give and take, it's a lot of compromises, but we did it together because we felt...
So what is the coherent, united vision that binds you beyond hoping to defeat the BJP?
You see, we have come together because we felt that in India, the constitutional bodies, the functioning, the transparency, the credibility, all of them was under a question mark. And we wanted to make sure that a 70-year history of nourishing these institutions remains. There is no question mark for the future. And that's important to all of us who hold institutions in very high regard. So we came together. In a democracy, we fight elections to win and to be able to better govern, to provide an alternate form of government, to have a blueprint for next 5 years, what you want to do. So we in the Congress party had a manifesto that I think resonated with the people of India. And that's why my party and the alliance members did fairly well.
Who's going to be the leader of this very complex coalition opposition?
Well, the numbers are important in democracy, and our president, Mr. Kharge, he's the convener of the group, and we still don't have a leader of opposition. But in a few days,
I mean,
in a few days
since the results became clear.
Parliament starts on 24th of June, so much before that.
You know as well as I do, there's much speculation about whether Rahul Gandhi is actually going to be the leader of the opposition inside Parliament. There's some suggesting that he really doesn't have the hunger for it. He doesn't really want the job. Is he going to get the job?
The Congress party has officially asked him to take up that job, but that's his personal decision. In terms of the hunger and the appetite to take on the BJP and the government, I think he's second to none in the last 8-9 years, despite being attacked personally, despite being threatened with cases and investigating agencies. He has come forward and questioned some of the wrong decisions that were taken by the government. He has worked hard for the party and for our candidates, and truth be told, the effort he put in walking across the country, 4,000 kilometers, to invoke the togetherness, the sort of listening to the people, to energize our workers and cadres, that helped us a great deal in getting these numbers that we have, 100 MPs.
You don't worry that if Rahul Gandhi takes leadership of the opposition inside the parliament, that it will to many Indians feel like yet another sign that the Congress party is still tied to dynastic politics, to the old guard, rather than a future-facing younger generation of politicians?
You see, in the Congress party, the contribution and sacrifice of, let's say, Indira Gandhi or Rajiv Gandhi, she took 32 bullets in her stomach to keep our country together. Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated while he was in opposition for his stand over the LTTE. So I think what they've done for the party is commendable, and it is the Congress party's decision to have its leader. Today we have a leader who was elected. It's not Mr. Gandhi, it's Mr. Kharge. He's the party president.
I understand that. You have 5 million or so followers on social media platforms. I just wonder, and you're a powerful voice inside the Congress party, do you, as an individual member of the party, a senior voice within it, want Rahul Gandhi to be the leader of the opposition?
I would want it. We have officially asked him to do it. He's going to take a call in a few days after consulting our allies, but whatever decision we take will be consensual and acceptable to everyone.
Just a final point about the state of Congress, as some people celebrate what was an outperformance of expectation, but others look at the Congress party and still see deep institutional flaws. You're an interesting case. You are also a dynastic politician in a sense. Your father was a minister in a Congress party government. You were a minister in a Congress party government. Here you sit before me actually right now as a member of the assembly in the state of Rajasthan. you had a terrible time in Rajasthan, 4 years or so ago. You had a massive feud as Deputy Chief Minister with your boss, the Chief Minister. He fired you, and it seemed to be symptomatic of a problem inside your party. Once you get into power, state or national, you start fighting amongst yourselves.
No, there were certain disagreements, but that's all in the past. What's far more important is that are we able to give...
Chief Minister, Mr. Gehlot, just to remind people, he described you as a worthless person as he fired you.
I don't respond to that. I think he may have said that, but I don't think it's appropriate for me to respond in the same tone and tenor. That's 4 or 5 years ago. I don't want to delve into it. But since then, we have worked together for the party in the state elections and in the national elections.
And you lost the state elections. And that's narrowly, my point in a way.
Narrowly. I think we did a lot better than we did 5 years ago. So, you know, and in Rajasthan, by the way, every 5 years there is a change of government for the last 30 odd years. That's been the trend. We came close to forming a government there, but didn't make it in the end. But I think these personal matters don't come in the way of the larger objective of the party, is to establish itself in places where we're weak and to give the BJP a head-on challenge. In fact, our strike rate is much better than last time.
This personal stuff doesn't get in the way. My point, I suppose, is a wider one, and it was raised by Shashi Tharoor, another member of the Congress Party who was on this show a year or so ago. He said, the fact is, we do, as the Congress Party, need to blood new young leaders. I think that will have to happen. The party has to end this high command culture. We have to empower the grassroots. I talk about your family background, I talk about the Gandhi family background. Maybe it's time for new, different leaders inside your party.
The Congress Party 2 years ago adopted a declaration. There we said 50% of all party positions will go to people who are below the age of 50, right? The backwards, the Dalits, the women, minorities. So 50% of all party positions are reserved for people who are below 50 years of age. We are the only party to do that. And just because I can get elected through the vote of the people doesn't make anybody else less qualified. There are enough opportunities. We take everybody along together. And ultimately, Steve, you have to give credit to the people who vote. So if someone goes and gets 2.5 million people and gets elected through an electoral process against many competition, you have to regard that choice as the people's choice. And the only one that matters is the people. If they don't want you, they won't vote for you.
So let's talk about what happens next in India. Mr. Modi is now beginning an historic third term. What practically can you, in this, as you put it, united opposition, do to change Modi's political direction?
I think time will tell what kind of a prime minister he turns out to be in the third term. But
He's talking about consensus.
Well, we'll have to see. It's too early. We haven't even convened parliament yet. Let's see what happens. But I think the numbers in the opposition are such that the single-handed decision-making, no discussions, no debates, no deliberations, that can't go on. This will be a different parliament. The numbers are stacked up pretty much evenly. It's not one-sided. And more than that, I think the vigor and the energy in the opposition ranks has really come forward. And that will change many of the political landscapes from what we've seen in the last few years.
Well, let's talk about a key element of the Modi vision, and that is the so-called Hindutva vision. That is essentially making India a majoritarian Hindu state with various different legal, constitutional changes. Are you in a position now, in the opposition, to block further moves in that direction? And if you can't do it in the parliament, will you try to do it even on the streets?
Most certainly. I think the first problem they'll have is within their own coalition. So the BJP has two regional parties, and both those parties have been opposed to the BJP in the past. So it'll be very tricky for them to do as they wish, because they don't have sufficient numbers in parliament. And ultimately in a democracy, numbers matter. If you don't have a clear majority of single party rule, you have to take other people along. I think time will tell whether the two allies will toe the line or they will do what we think is right. So the things that you mentioned, certainly within parliament and outside, the Congress party will be in the forefront to take up anything we feel is not in the best interest of India.
So to be specific, you know, the BJP still, it seems, has a plan to push a so-called uniform civil code, which some in India see as extremely threatening to regional practices and customs, including religious practices and customs, specifically Muslim practices and customs. Rahul Gandhi has said the idea you can spread hate and reap the benefits, that has been rejected. So I suppose the question comes back to this. How are you going to stop it happening?
First of all, this so-called Uniform Civil Code, there's been a lot of talk, there's been a lot of media discussions, but the government has not really come out with any blueprint or roadmap. There's no clarity on exactly what they want. It's a concept, but it's really, I think, not on the table as of now. Whenever I feel, look, the Indian Constitution is a secular constitution. Every citizen is equally empowered. If anything is done to limit the rights, the freedom, the liberty of any of our citizens, surely that can't be the right way forward. And we have differences within our parliament, parties, ideology, but the Indian nation and Indian people are far superior to anybody else.
But is this difficult and sensitive territory for you and your party to get into? Because, well, look at the facts. You had one fairly prominent member of your party, Radhika Kira. She left Congress during the campaign, and she alleged that she left because of your party's anti-Hindu ideology.
Listen, when someone wants to leave the party, they have to come up with something that sells. So you sell something, it goes into the media cycles, and you get prominence for that. There is no grain of truth in what that person may have said. I can tell you.
So again, not so long ago with Shashi Tharoor, I talked about difficult subjects like the fact that what we see in India today is that, for example, people who have been discovered to have kept beef in their fridges, for example, they get their houses bulldozed to the ground. Now, that's not because a law says that must happen. It's simply because that's what the local authorities allow to happen.
Any government, any party, taking a step which is not in the rule book or does excesses will not be accepted. That's true. It's not just we in the Congress party, but the entire society thinks like that. There are a few instances, I will have to agree, but those have not been well received. And perhaps that is why you see the numbers that you see for the BJP and the allies.
So are you already reaching out? You talk about some of the smaller parties in the ruling coalition who you believe are not committed to this sort of policy. Is your party currently reaching out to them and long-term trying to persuade them to leave the coalition and topple Modi?
You're putting the cart before the horse. I mean, we have to see how the government functions, what the allies do and don't do. Let the parliament session begin. All I can say is that with this election, there is a resounding message that Indian people, no matter what the propaganda, what the exit polls say, what the marketing machine of the BJP says, they have voted evenly. The BJP may be ahead of us and may have formed a government, but it was a fractured mandate. It wasn't the 300 seats the BJP wanted for itself, and surely someone must take responsibility for what they thought they'll achieve and they haven't. And the opposition together has come forward, and I think it's a healthy sign for our democracy.
What is the Congress Party's vision for India's future? Because if you're not just to be an opposition party, but to be a potential party of government, you have to convince the Indian people that you have your own narrative for the future of the country.
For this election, I can guarantee you our manifesto, our guarantees, what we said about the farming communities, for young people, for women, for jobs, for wealth creation, for creating an ecosystem where investments take place. Today, we have the highest unemployment. 40% educated young people are unemployed. That's not acceptable. So just pure GDP numbers won't suffice. You have to have a job creating growth trajectory that's reaching out to the people who are on the fringes. And in the Congress party, we made sure that we want to have growth. Don't forget, in 1991, it was our party's government that opened up Indian economy for liberalized trade, global trade investments. And today we feel that the farming communities and the downtrodden haven't really got the benefits of Indian economy doing so well.
But if I may say so, your problem is that Modi has a record. I mean, Modi has delivered more than a decade of economic transformation in India. We see it in the way that India is regarded by international investors, by big business, which wants a piece of India. The danger for you is that many of those business leaders see in your vision and your program a leftist radical agenda all about redistribution, prioritizing the poor more than business, which they see as a threat to the Indian economy.
Absolutely misplaced. I tell you again, 91, when India first opened its economy to the world, it was a Congress government. We reformed the economy, liberalized the economy, we made India part of global investments, global trade in 1990s.
With the greatest of respect, that's more than 30 years ago.
Yes,
Look at your agenda for the campaign we've just seen. You were pushing a, quote, right to apprenticeship scheme, which required businesses to hire apprentices even if they had no aptitude or skills relevant to that particular business.
It was about giving opportunity to an educated, qualified young person who hasn't been given that option. Don't we have to create more jobs? Do we not have to lean on our economy to make sure young people are not unemployed or underemployed?
But it's a balance. You don't want to destroy the economy.
Not at all.
You're trying to spread the wealth from.
India has grown in the last 30 years, but I feel that the Indian economy growing is not enough. We have to create jobs. We have to make sure our farmers are well fed. There are tens of millions of people who are not in the mainstream yet. How to get them back in? And please, Congress Party has always fostered growth, investments and job creation. There's no two ways about it.
I think Indians watching and listening to you will be clear that the Congress Party is going on the offensive in the coming months because you've got a much stronger position inside the Parliament and I dare say inside the country.
It's not offensive. It's a question of raising the voice of the people to be heard inside of Parliament.
But I just wonder, in that context, whether you are fearful of a new round of repression. We have seen what has happened to leaders of the opposition in India in recent years. Rahul Gandhi, who was convicted of defamation and only was released from prison after the Supreme Court ordered it. Do you fear that, I don't know about yourself, but senior leaders of your party will be under enormous pressure in the coming months?
The government has used its agencies to target the opposition. It's very obvious, it's very clear. Chief ministers are being put in jail. The agencies are investigating all opposition on some charges or the other. But I think all of that will get a pushback now because the BJP does not have the mandate or the blank check by the people to do as it pleases. So there's more oversight.
Is there really? Where's the new oversight coming
Parliament,
from?
We will do it in Parliament. The opposition will do it.
Well, you still are in the minority. That's your problem.
Doesn't matter, but we have a voice. We will take it up and we will let people decide. You see, we can't just sit back and say that everything is as it was earlier. There is a shift. And we have to recognize that shift.
Yeah, some say that the problem with the Congress Party approach is that in recent years you haven't had the capacity to take your campaigning from state and national parliament to the streets. You haven't had the power to mobilize the people of India. Do you think you can do that in the future?
Without sounding immodest, the Congress Party is India's oldest party. Our presence and our footprint is everywhere in this country. Yes, there are some places where we have organizational weaknesses. We're working on that. But the Congress Party and its cadre are absolutely equipped to be a constructive, strong opposition wherever it's needed. We don't oppose for the sake of opposing, but when we have to be heard and seen, we do it, and we do it quite rigorously. So make no mistake that getting a few seats less will make our voices disappear, or the Congress Party won't speak up when we are required to.
One thing we haven't discussed, which is important, is India's role and place in the wider world. What we have seen under Modi is India's voice gaining traction and power across the world, partly because of the massive economic growth inside your country. Would you change, if you were in power, any of the positions taken by Modi on Pakistan, on China, on Russia? Would you change anything in foreign policy?
I think the good thing about India is that no matter what government comes into power, the directional focus of foreign policy is pretty much the same. There are some differences.
You don't quarrel with Modi's vision of India in the world.
I think don't confuse his vision with what India stands for. So we have our differences, we fight them out, we win and lose. But for outside the world, India is one strong 1.4 billion people, and they need to have their space, they need to have their voices heard, and we will. We will persevere to make sure that happens. For example, getting India a seat on the Security Council. There's no reason why we shouldn't have that, irrespective of who's in government. That's something that India deserves and should have. There's no two ways about it. But in your question, you asked about our differences. Yes, I have a difference. For example, I think that our stand on the Chinese incursions into India in some parts of our country, they are still not taken care of. That's not been addressed properly as well as it should have been. I think a proper, more strong voice.
More hawkish on China.
Well, I think we have a lot of issues, and there's been lots of data that has not come out. So we need to really take that into consideration as we move forward.
A final big thought. You've made a point in this interview of saying, we in the opposition, we have a new level of traction. We can change the way Modi operates. Does that mean that we, over the next 4 or 5 years, are looking at a much more unstable India?
I can't say what will happen. All I can tell you is that we have a new government. It's not a single party government, it's a coalition. We've had coalitions before also. How long they last, I don't know, but the Indian people have voted. We accept the mandate as it is. They voted for us to be in the opposition, and we're doing that for now. What the future holds, I don't know. And they always say, today's opposition is tomorrow's government. So,
will Modi last a 5-year term?
I don't know, I can't say. It depends on their coalition partners.
Sachin Pilot, thank you very much for joining me on Hard Talk.
Thanks.